think, Dmitry, of this construct of the nation state, which has been around for a little bit over 2 centuries, which is the norm today, which has been invented in the West, by the way, by the West in the West. How sustainable do you think it is, and what other alternatives, if you think it's not sustainable, what other alternatives do you know about?
Well, there's empires.
That's for one, yeah. But empires aren't they just nation states with expansionist ambitions?
No, not really. Empires can be on islands, in which case, how exactly are they going to expand? They can be perfectly steady state.
Yeah, well, in the case of England, well, you can expand on land as Russia did, or overseas as England and Western Europe had to. But don't you think it is a construct which is way too centralized? I mean, having a small number of people ruling over tens or hundreds of millions, sometimes over a billion, as is the case with China and India, isn't it a little bit a crazy notion, putting so much power in such a few hands?
Well, no, because you can delegate. Empires are infinitely scalable. They're scalable to the size of the universe. It's just a question of how you administer them. So, for instance, under Mongol rule, the Khan basically ratified the decision of the people to elect a leader. So, in a particular province, Russian province, for instance, Russia at that point organized around city-states, pretty much. A particular city-state would elect a leader, a prince. The prince would then travel to wherever the Khan happened to have pitched his tent. And the Khan would either approve or disapprove of the people's choice, basically ratify the decision, present the elected leader with a document called Yarlik, which was taken back to the people saying, look, the great Khan has granted me authority over you. And then the people would accept that authority. That system went on for longer than the Westphalian system has been in existence. So, and over much larger territory. So if you compare apples and apples, the Imperial Mongol system of rule is much more successful than this newfangled Western model.
Did it survive Genghis Khan or not? Isn't it exception that it works? I mean, isn't it dependent on a competent and benevolent ruler, emperor, you could say?
Yes, it did. And that was the big flaw in it, which is when there was an improper Khan, when there was a problem at the center, that tended to result in big wars. So one of the biggest battles that the Russians fought, supposedly Russians against Mongols, except that there were Mongols and Russians on both sides, fighting on both sides. So that kind of throws a wrench into the story that this was some kind of a liberation anti-imperialist movement. But basically, it was the Battle of Kulikovo Pole, fought pretty close to Moscow. But that was a battle fought over succession at the imperial center. There was the right Khan and the wrong Khan, and the wrong Khan was defeated. And everything went back to normal. And then it went on, and eventually it turned out that in Kazakhstan, which was part of the Mongol Empire, much later, Russian Tsars would again follow the same system of legitimizing locally elected authority. Basically, the Russians took over for the Mongols in a rather direct fashion. The taxation arrangements that the Mongols put in place remained intact after the Mongol Empire went away and the Russian Empire took its place. So if you look at the Russian Federation on a map, and you look at the Mongol Empire on a map, you can see a definite similarity. And if you look at the governance methods, same, pretty much same, except that now it's, well, the difference is that now Putin says who the governor is, and then the people vote for that person, as opposed to going the other way. but that's thanks to modern communications, pretty much.
Yeah, this Genghis Khan episode is extremely interesting, but then yeah, it shows again the limits of the system. When guy dies or he loses his mind or whatever, generally it's a wrong sort of people.
Well, you know,
go ahead.
Any machine is only as reliable as its moving parts, but that doesn't mean that the machine overall is bad. It basically in any system, the quality of the individuals involved determines the outcome to a large extent. But in terms of the Mongols, they did pretty well for a really long time because their ways of managing family life were so robust. And that's really something that they got right, and something that, for instance, Western aristocracies failed at just absolutely, completely horribly. A lot of that had to do with the fact that with the Mongols, if you couldn't fight, right, you couldn't rule. If you applied that standard to the European aristocrats, they'd all be dead. They'd all be replaced by Mongols.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, today everybody among the elites is happy to send somebody else's children to war, right? But the children never go into war, or if they go to war, if it happens, it's a communication stunt, and generally they don't risk their life or anything. They get a very convenient and safe job, while they can still take pictures with the planes and things like that.
But in terms of centralizing authority, etc., it's one thing to centralize authority, and another one to actually use that authority on some kind of an individual basis. You know, I've been in positions of leadership. I've managed groups of people. And, you know, the ultimate dream of a manager, you know what that is? To do absolutely nothing and yet succeed. To basically sit there and say, okay, this is great, keep going. So,
exactly.
So you can do that over any number of people. You can structure them in millions and thousands and hundreds and tens, and you can have local rule at any given level, wherever that makes sense. And then the central authority, all it has to do is legitimize local rule and make sure that they don't fight with each other, keep the peace. So that's a scalable system.
Yeah, but it's again by a benevolent ruler. I think you were a benevolent manager, Dmitry. That's why you had this ambition, and not the one which made you control people around you at all times, and made you feel absolutely necessary and indispensable for things to work, right? These are two opposite approaches of management and authority. Regarding post-collapse, Dmitry, how do you think people could prepare for, because collapse is going to happen, right? We don't know when it is going to happen, but it is going to happen. Some people say, oh no, these are gloomy ideas. Why talk about collapse? Well, what would be stupid is to not talk about collapse, because if there's one thing that will happen, it's collapse. We don't know when, yes, but it is going to happen. What would you recommend to people to prepare for a possible collapse? What are the pieces of advice?
Well, the standard behavior is to not prepare at all. The standard behavior is to ignore everything I'm saying, do nothing, and then when collapse does happen, deny that it has anything to do with what I said or anything like that, and accept it as a personal failing, and just kind of keep quiet about it. That's pretty much the pattern. Now, in terms of what people could do, well, there's any number of things that people could do. One reasonable thing to try is to figure out what you need to survive and where it comes from. Basically figure out how fragile you are. A lot of people think in terms of what they have right now and what they could get that they want with it. And that's the level of thinking. Very few people think in terms of what they have that they don't need. how they can basically set aside things that they do need, basically minimalism, but minimalism with an eye toward the future. And then even fewer people have the situational awareness of seeing the pattern that's evolving around them and figuring out when it's time to move. A lot of people just basically are stuck wherever they are, and they feel that that's where they're going to be. And they don't practice the techniques of being mobile. Now, one of the things, just civilizationally speaking, that separates people into two categories are the sedentary and the nomadic. The sedentary practice minimalism because you can't take it all with you. They have superior technology because portable technology is by definition superior to stationary technology. And they have superior situational awareness because they move from place to place. They're not always within the same familiar surroundings. So they must develop a higher level of intelligence because of that to deal with a number of situations. And then because they move around and the future is unpredictable because they're going from place to place, they don't know what the situation is, where they're going to, they have to plan for the future. They have to have some mechanism for making decisions on the spot for what to do to get out of various predicaments, etc. So if you look at who rules whom, nomads typically rule stationary people. They basically dominate them. They find it very easy to dominate them. So if you want to survive, become nomadic. Practice everything you need to become nomadic. Practice those skills, teach them to your children, and that'll give you a better chance to survive.